this is Chapter 2, Section 3. This is Part 2 of that section. So now what I want to get into is what the distribution of the data looks like using percentiles, and how do we actually calculate an outlier for this type of data set. So before we were doing observational outliers. Now we're actually calculate outliers, which come in two flavors, mild and extreme, basically. In order to figure that out, we need to know what the IQR is first. So the interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1, or quartile 3 minus quartile 1, which is essentially going to give you a box, Q1 and Q3, right? And of course the median, which will be in the middle somewhere, will be quartile 2. Okay, so the distance of this box is the IQR, right? Q3 minus QR. So some distance this way is an upper outlier, some distance this way is a lower outlier. So if you're 1.5 times the distance in either direction, you're a mild outlier. However, if you get beyond 3 times the distance on either direction, you're an extreme outlier, essentially, right? Okay, so this is essentially what it looks like. So you have your IQR box, which is the middle of your data, right? And then you have data here, and you have data here. If you're more than 1.5 times out there, you're going to be an outlier range upper or lower, right? But if you get more than 3 times away, you have extreme outliers on the other end, right? So that's the pictorial representation. And I put formulas in there, but it's generally just 1.5 and 3 times the IQR, just add and subtract to the end, essentially. Okay, let's do a couple problems to kind of illustrate this. So let's say we have these data points here, which again, if you are in Canvas, right, in the notes, right, lecture documents. So we're working off the notes right there, and the data you can download and drop into your OneDrive. And here is our data here that I opened up in my OneDrive. So essentially I just dropped it into there and then opened in the browser, or you can open the local app if you want, but my videos are based on the browser. So I'm going to take the temperature in Fahrenheit and sort those, so data and sort, and then I'll take the guinea pig data and sort, essentially. So now they're in order, which is what we need for doing quartiles, essentially. Okay. So the first data set is temperatures in Fahrenheit for a town on the same day for 11 consecutive years, and the second data set is 72 guinea pigs and how long they lived in days. Okay, so we need to figure out our quartiles to be able to do any of this. So we will calculate, if I get my thing going here, Q1 equals, we'll copy, paste, and then we'll do quartile 2 and quartile 3, which makes that IQR, essentially. Alright, so we want to go over here and do our counts. Count equals, right? So the count is 25 over 100 times the number of data points. If you look here and you count the number of data points there are 11 of them, so it's 11 plus 1, right? So we're using the count formula. So essentially we have, let's see, that's 25 times 12. What is that? 300 over 100, right? So that's 3. So if I count 3 in the data set now, 1, 2, 3, the third one over is 70, right? Okay. So it's 70 Fahrenheit, but I'm not going to put that in because we're going to do some calculations with it. We don't need the descriptions for now. Okay, so I'll blue that up, and we'll copy this, and we'll set it down. So we want the 50th percentile, so 50 times 12 would be, what, 600, so that's 6. If I count over 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's 80. Right, and I copy it over one more time. Copy. Go to the 75th percentile, right, quartile 3. So that's 75 times 12, that'd be 900, right? So that'd be what, 9? Okay, so if I go over to the 9th value, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's 89. Yes. Okay, so those are my quartiles, essentially. All right, so we can answer all of these, right? So The median of the data is quartile 3, which we found to be, whoops, that's not what I want. There we go. We found to be 80. I'm sorry, quartile 2. What am I doing? Not quartile. Middle of the data. Okay, so my IQR, I want that blue. Format color, blue. Differentiate the answers. All right, so the IQR, that box, is Q3 minus Q1, right? It's going to be the 89 minus, what was it, 70, right? Let me just break this down a little bit here. Yeah, 89 minus 70, so that is an IQR of 19. Okay, so we need to figure out our fences now. So essentially, our fences are these things here, right? At what point do I cross the fence where I'm actually become a mild or extreme outlier, right? So we need to calculate, these fences, which are based on these distances away from either side of the IQR box, essentially, right? You have to get that distance away. Okay, plus or minus the ends. All right, so we should probably go down here and do mild distance, right? Let's do it this way. Let me capitalize mild distance. Nope, doesn't seem to like that. That's okay. Okay, we'll just do this. We'll do style text. There we go. All right, so it's 1.5 times 19, because that's the IQR, right? So 1.5 times 19 is 28.5. So we'll copy this, copy, paste, and then the extreme distance is 3 times 19, which would be 57, right? Okay, so we need to know the fences now. So the fences are from the ends of the quartiles, right? So quartile 3 is 80. So we'll do upper fences. We'll do it that way, fences. And yeah, we'll just do a colon. And then lower fences. Okay. All right, so we want, so the upper fence would be above 89, the lower fence would be below 70. So 89 plus 28.5, right, because I'm using the mild distance. That's going to be 117.5. And then 89 plus the 57 would be 146. Okay, so now I want to do 70 minus 28.5 because it's below the lower end essentially. It'd be 41.5, and then 70 minus the extreme distance, 57, so that's going to leave me with 13 left over. Okay, so my fences essentially in order. All right, so what I got is 13, comma 41.5, comma. Let's do tab actually. 41.5, comma 117.5, comma 146. Right, those are my fences. Okay, so of these, I can figure out what of these values are mild and extreme outliers. So let's do the picture first, and then we'll go from there. So I'll draw the picture down here. Actually, I don't have enough room. Well, you can draw it down here. I'm going to draw it up here. Okay, so I'm going to draw my IQR first. Come on. There we go. All right, so I'll draw my box. This is my IQR, right? IQR, right? So quartile 1 is 70. Quartile 3 is 89, right? 89. And then somewhere in here is the 80, right? Which is quartile 2 of the median, right? So this IQR distance is 19, right? That's how big my house is essentially. So we have two fences. We have upper fence, mild and extreme, and a lower fence, mild and extreme. So those fences are 13, 41.5, 117.5, and 146. Okay, so if I look at my data, I can figure out which ones are outliers now. So the 120 on the higher end is in here. Okay. And these are all below 117.5. And then below 41.5 is 9, which would fall over here, right? Okay. Since this is beyond the second fence, the 9 is an extreme outlier. Okay. And the 120 would be mild, because it only get over the first fence, essentially, right? So other ones in here, like 65, right? 65 is in here somewhere. That's not an outlier, because this is just your backyard. And then like, what's this, what, 89? So this is 92. 92 is in here somewhere, right? So those are not, like, so you can think of it this way. This is my house. That's my front yard. That's my backyard, right? So if the dog jumps the fence, you're in a little bit of trouble, right? But if your dog jumps the second fence, then you got to call the dog catcher. You're in a lot of trouble. You're in extreme trouble, basically. Okay. All right. So that's essentially the picture there. We can put in the numbers here. So mild outlier. Actually, just type it 120. Right. Bold and blue. And the extreme outlier was 9. Bold and blue. Okay. All right, that's good enough there. Good deal. All right, let's try the same thing for the guinea pigs, essentially, right? So, I'm going to cheat here and copy this. And we'll paste it here. Okay, so we don't know what these are now. So I need to know how many guinea pigs there are. So if I go to my data set, guinea pigs, and I count the number of guinea pigs here, I have 72 guinea pigs in my data set. Okay, so these are going to be 72 now. 72, 72, 72. So that's 73. So it's 25 times 73 would be 1825. So that'd be 18.25, and then 50 times 73 would be 3650, right? So that's 36.5, and then 75 times 73 would be 5475. 75. 75. So 54.75. Right. You wonder how I do these so quickly? You can use a spreadsheet if you want, right? So you can do the 75 times 73, right? I'm going to get that right there. And obviously divide by 100, just move it over 2 decimal places. So that's how I'm doing it so quick, off the screen. Okay, so the trick is now I have to count through these is the issue, right? So I have to count to the 18th and 19th value in the list, which should be easy. I go to the 18th and 19th value, and I get these two here, right? So I'm going to get a fraction of 82 plus 83 divided by 2. So I'm going to get 82.5. Come on, type 82.5. So I need to go to the 36th and 37th value. So 36th and 37th value is the just a little fraction again. 102 plus 103 divided by 2. Oops, why did I do that? Divided by 2. So that's 102.5. All right, so 54 and 55 are the last one. So 54 and 55, 147, 146. Okay, so 147 plus 156 divided by 2. So that's 2, so that'd be 300, so that's 151.5. Okay, so that's our counts there. Okay, so we can use those now to fill in the information that we have, because we need the quartiles. Oh, we need the fences. We don't have that yet. We'll come back. All right, so the quartile 3, I'm going to cheat here and copy that. Probably should have done that. Okay. The median, all right, quartile 2 is 102.5, right? And then we'll copy this. So we have oops, what do we have here? Quartile 3 minus quartile 1 for the IQR. Alright, so I have 151.5 minus 82.5, right? So if I subtract those, I would get 69. Okay. Alright, so fences require the distance now from the 16 with using the 69. Okay. So my mile distance is 1.5 times 69, and then extreme distance is 3 times 69. So 1.5 times 69 is 103.5, and 3 times 69 would be 207, right? So we have to look at the quartile 3, which is 151.5. So 151.5. We have to go 103 from that, right? So that's going to be 255, and we have to take the 151.5 and add the 208, right? Extreme distance. So that's going to be 358.5, right? All right, now we need to take the lower end, 82.5. So 82.5, which is the lower end of the IQR, and then take away the mile distance, 103.5, and the extreme distance, which is 208. So this is going to give us negative answers in both cases, so negative 21 and negative 124.5. Okay, so we can list those as our fences now. We could probably just list them negative 124.5, tab negative 21, tab 255, tab 358.5. All right, those are our fences, right? So now we can use this to draw our our distribution and then figure out what the outliers are essentially, right? Okay, so if I draw this, I should draw it down here, but I can't scroll, so I'm going to draw it up here essentially. Okay, so I draw my box, right? This is my IQR box, right? IQR, and the distance of this box is 69, right? Because this one is 82.5, right? This one here is 151.5, right? And our median was in here somewhere, which is 102.5. Okay, so we have a fence up here, and we have a fence down here for 4 fences, mild extreme on both ends. So 255 obviously is this lower fence, and then the extreme fence is 358.5, right? And then down here is negative 21 and negative 124.5. So obviously you can't be negative days old, right, as far as your life expectancy. So there's no actual data down here that can be possible, which is fine. That can happen, which is why I picked this problem. On the higher end, can I go more than 255? Or all of these are more than 255, right? More than 358 would be all of these, isn't it? So there's one mild, which is 329, right? So 329's in here, correct? Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more over here, correct? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over there, right? So we got this one, this one, this one, right? That one, and that one. If you draw it down below, you can actually put the numbers. Okay? And notice I don't list any other points, because if you're in the front yard or the backyard of your house, you're absolutely fine. Those are not outliers. It's only when you cross a fence do you become an outlier. And one fence crossing is mild, and 2 fence crossings are extreme. Okay, so we can put our outliers now. So the mild is 129, and the extreme of the other ones, right? So we had what, 380, 403, 511, 522, and 598, right? So it is possible to have only outliers on one end, or only extreme, or only mild. Any one of those combinations is perfectly fine, essentially. Okay? All right, so basically the idea is this shows the distribution of the data using quartiles.